Hi. I'm Lindsay, 28 at the time, and 3 weeks before my wedding, my entire life blew apart in a single dinner, because my sister announced she was pregnant with my fiancé's baby. Yeah. Buckle up. Here's exactly how it happened. I showed up at my parents' house for what I thought was a normal Thursday dinner. I even brought a bottle of wine, because that's who I used to be, the polite, put-together daughter who tried. But the second I walked in, I felt it. The atmosphere. Thick. Strange. Like someone had died, but nobody wanted to say it yet. My dad wouldn't meet my eyes. My mom was wringing her hands so hard I thought she'd snap a knuckle. And my younger sister, 23, perpetually spoiled, always somehow the center of attention, sat with this arrogant, blank stare. The kind of stare that already knows the damage it's about to cause. Halfway through dinner, she stood up, placed a hand on her perfectly flat stomach, and said, "I'm pregnant. And it's with Jason's baby." Jason. My fiancé. The man I was supposed to marry in 21 days. I remember the exact sound of my fork hitting the plate. It was loud. Obnoxiously normal compared to the explosion that just went off inside me. Then she added, like she was announcing a movie she'd seen, "And we've been together for 6 months. 6 months. My mother gasped, but not in the, "Oh my God, you poor thing," way. More like someone had dropped a glass. My father immediately said, "Lindsay, calm down," before I'd even processed the words. My sister? She didn't look ashamed. Or sorry. Or even conflicted. Just blank. Like she'd rehearsed it. That night, my fiancé called me 73 times. 73. I didn't answer a single one. Over the next 2 weeks, everything I thought I knew about my family unraveled. They stopped treating what happened like a betrayal and instead acted like I was the problem for being upset. My sister was young and scared, and made a mistake. I needed to be mature. And then, this is the part that still makes my stomach twist, they used my wedding. Literally used it. The venue. The florist. The caterer. The date. All the deposits I had paid. My mother actually asked me, "Sweetheart, would you mind if your sister uses everything? It would be such a waste to cancel." I minded. I minded more than I've minded anything in my life. But they did it anyway. 2 months after my wedding date, my sister walked down the aisle, pregnant with my ex-fiancé's child, at the venue I had chosen, surrounded by my decorations, eating the menu I selected. Everyone attended except 3 people, my aunt, my cousin, and my grandmother. Everyone else smiled for photos like nothing grotesque was happening. And I sat alone in my apartment with a bottle of wine, staring at the wedding dress in my closet that would never be worn. That was the night I realized my family didn't just betray me. They erased me. I cut them off completely. Moved. Changed numbers. Blocked them everywhere. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. But this story? It isn't just about betrayal. It's about the years that came next, the rebuilding, the healing, the revenge I didn't mean to unleash, the consequences that hit people I never intended to hurt, and the moment I realized I'd become someone I didn't recognize. Cutting off my family felt like amputating a limb, bloody, painful, necessary. But just like amputations, what came afterward was worse. The silence. I went no contact overnight. Blocked every number. Moved across the city. Deleted my social media. The only people who knew how to reach me were my therapist and my best friend. The first 6 months were brutal. Every morning I woke up with that sick feeling in my chest, like my life had been shoved off a cliff while I was forced to watch. I wasn't grieving the relationship with my fiancé. I eventually realized he was nothing but a walking red flag disguised as a future husband. I was grieving the betrayal by my family. The people who were supposed to protect me but instead pushed me in front of the bus. Therapy became my second job. My therapist kept gently suggesting things like forgiveness, but I wasn't trying to heal. I was trying to survive, to stop thinking about my sister wearing my wedding flowers while carrying my fiancé's child. I worked. A lot. Took every overtime opportunity. Flew across the country for conferences. I told everyone I was focusing on my career, which was a nicer way of saying, if I slow down I will fall apart. Around year 2 something shifted. I woke up one morning and realized I hadn't thought about my sister or Jason in an entire week. It felt like someone had finally loosened a rope that had been choking me. And that's exactly when Owen entered the picture. We met at a conference in Seattle. We were assigned to the same table at a networking dinner, and I barely remember the speaker because I spent 4 hours talking to him instead, about business, travel, stupid childhood stories. Not once did he pity me. Not once did he pry. He just listened. He made me laugh in a way I hadn't in years. We dated long distance for 8 months before he asked me to move in. I nearly had a panic attack. Committing felt like stepping into a fire barefoot. But Owen wasn't Jason. He didn't push. He didn't manipulate. He didn't make me feel like I needed to earn love. He made me feel safe. One night around 2 a.m., on his balcony overlooking the city, I told him everything. About the betrayal. The wedding theft. The way my family cut me out like mold on cheese. I expected shock or judgment. Instead, he said, you rebuilt yourself from ashes. That's strength, not shame. He proposed 10 months later. No dramatic gesture. No audience. Just a quiet, simple moment on a Tuesday night while we were cooking pasta. And I said yes. We planned a tiny wedding in Italy, just us and 12 friends. I sent my parents an invitation, not because I wanted them there, but because I wanted them to know I was happy without them. They didn't come. My mother called to say they couldn't abandon my sister, because her marriage was struggling. I hung up mid-sentence. Owen and I got married under a golden sunset in a vineyard overlooking the hills. My dress was one I picked alone. My vows were mine. My family wasn't mentioned once. It was perfect. We started trying for a baby 6 months later. And life, being the cruel, ironic beast it is, decided that would be the moment to test everything I'd built. Month after month, nothing happened. After a year of trying, a fertility specialist confirmed what I already suspected. It was going to be hard. Draining. Expensive. Emotionally shredding. Owen held my hand and said, whatever it takes, we'll do it. But the more we tried, the more my mind slid back to the one truth I'd buried. My sister got pregnant effortlessly, by the man who was supposed to be mine. And here I was, desperate for something she'd thrown away without a second thought. One night, after another negative test, I broke down and said something horrible even as the words left my mouth. Maybe this is punishment. Maybe I deserve this. Owen grabbed my shoulders and said, don't you dare give them credit for something that isn't theirs. Don't let their choices define your life. And I believed him. For a while. But life wasn't finished twisting the knife. Because 4 years after I cut them off, my phone rang. My father's name on the screen. Against every instinct, I answered. Lindsay, he said, we need to talk. Your mother wants us all to sit down. As a family. A family. The same people who replaced me like a broken appliance. Owen met my eyes as I ended the call. You don't owe them anything, he said gently. I knew that. But part of me also knew this story wasn't finished yet. And I could feel it. The past wasn't just knocking. It was kicking the damn door in. I should have said no. I should have blocked my father again, poured myself a glass of wine, and moved on with my life. But trauma does this thing. It whispers, what if? What if seeing them gives you closure? What if this time is different? What if you finally get an apology? So like an idiot, I agreed to a neutral dinner. Neutral. Right. Like a Shark Tank is neutral if you just pretend the sharks are friendly. The restaurant was expensive, quiet, the kind of place where people whisper even when they're not saying anything scandalous. Owen squeezed my hand under the table, grounding me. Then they arrived. My parents first. Older, grayer, but still wearing that same practiced expression of polite disappointment. And then my sister. With her 2 kids. Kids who looked exactly like Jason, the man I was supposed to marry. Seeing those eyes on her son felt like a punch to my lungs. She looked tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from one bad night of sleep but from years of poor decisions slowly detonating your life. Her husband, my ex-fiancé, followed behind her like a guilty dog. He couldn't even meet my eyes. We sat. We ordered. Small talk oozed across the table like spilled glue no one wanted to touch. My parents asked Owen about work. Complimented my hair. Asked how things were? In my part of the city. I wanted to scream. Then dessert came. And that's when everything detonated. My mother, in her usual, innocent, tone, asked if Owen and I were planning to have kids soon. I opened my mouth to give a polite non-answer. But my sister beat me to it. With a laugh. A laugh. Good luck, she said, slicing her cake. I heard you're having trouble. Must be awful wanting something you can't have. It felt like someone dumped ice water into my veins. What did you just say? I asked. She shrugged. I'm just saying, not everyone's fertile. Some of us get pregnant just thinking about it. She actually patted her stomach. Oh, didn't I mention? I'm pregnant again. 12 weeks. Another boy. We're very blessed. Owen's jaw tightened so hard I thought the table might crack from the tension alone. My father beamed at her like she'd cured cancer. My mother gasped and clutched her hands. I sat frozen, a knife in my hand and a storm in my chest. Then she looked at Owen. Right at him. With a slow, smug smile. You must be so patient, she said. If my husband couldn't give me children, I don't know what I'd do. But I guess when you really love someone, you settle. It was the way she said it. The way she held his gaze. The implication dripping from her voice like poisoned syrup. Owen stood so abruptly his chair screeched. We're leaving. My sister rolled her eyes. God, I was just making conversation. Stop being dramatic. My mother reached for my arm. Your sister didn't mean anything by it. You know how she is, she speaks without thinking. That was the sentence. The sentence they'd used my entire life to excuse every horrible thing she'd ever done. And something in me snapped. I stood. Not shouting. Not hysterical. Not crying. Quiet. Too quiet. You want to talk about thinking? I said. Let's do it. I leaned forward, hands on the table. Let's talk about how you slept with my fiancé for 6 months. Let's talk about how you got pregnant and announced it like you'd won a contest. Let's talk about how you stole my wedding and my venue and my flowers while everyone here smiled and clapped. My father opened his mouth. I lifted a finger. Don't. I turned to my parents. You didn't just choose her. You abandoned me. You used my wedding plans for her and expected me to clap for it. My sister scoffed. Are we still on this? It's been years. Get over it. Get over it. I repeated. My entire life exploded. You destroyed me, and you've never, not once, apologized. Because I'm not sorry, she said. Her husband dropped his fork. My mother gasped. My father stared at his hands. I laughed. A sound so bitter it barely felt human. You know what's funny? I said. You think that makes you powerful. My sister smirked. Oh, please. He wouldn't have cheated if you were satisfying him. Owen moved to stand beside me, radiating fury. My sister looked him up and down. If you ever get tired of waiting for damaged goods, she said with a little shrug, you know where to find me. The table exploded. My father shouted. My mother cried. Her husband tried to stop her from saying more. Owen whispered, We're leaving. Now. But before I walked away, I stepped closer. Just close enough for her to see the fury she'd built inside me over all these years. You think you won? I whispered. You stole a man who wasn't worth anything. You built a life on betrayal. And look at you now, tired, miserable, married to a man who can't stand you, raising kids who will grow up knowing their father cheated on their aunt. Her husband looked like he'd been slapped. You want to talk about damaged goods? I said. Start with the mirror. Then I grabbed my purse, took Owen's hand, and walked away. My mother reached for me, sobbing. Please don't do this. I looked at her with all the calm in the world. I'm not doing anything. You all did it years ago. I'm just done pretending we're a family. And we left. It felt final. It felt like closure. I thought that was the end of the revenge. I didn't realize it was only the beginning. I wish I could say I walked out of that restaurant and never looked back. That I went home, poured myself a glass of wine, and felt nothing but empowerment. But that's not what happened. I went home shaking, angry, vindicated, nauseous, and then, when the adrenaline finally crashed, something darker crawled up my spine. Curiosity. For years I had stayed away from them. Cut them off. Blocked every number. Deleted every trace of them from my daily life. But now I wanted to watch the consequences roll in. And God help me, I did. It started small, like dipping a toe into the same toxic water I'd spent years trying to drain. I joined an online support group for people estranged from their families. Anonymous. No names. No locations. Just pain and strangers who understood. I wrote a post. My whole story. The betrayal, the stolen wedding, the kids, the dinner from hell. I changed details. No names, no city, no specific markers. It felt good. It felt validating. It felt addictive. Hundreds of comments poured in. You're strong. Your sister is a monster. Your family is abusive. You did the right thing. It was the kind of validation I had been starved of for years. I kept checking the post. Every morning. Every night. Sometimes in the bathroom. At work. Before bed. And that's when it happened. 3 weeks later my aunt called. Not my mother's sister, the other aunt. The one who refused to attend my sister's stolen wedding. The only relative who ever took my side. Lindsay, she said, I need to ask you something. Did you write something online? My stomach flipped. What do you mean? There's a story circulating through town. My heart stopped. A story about a girl whose sister slept with her fiancé and stole her wedding. Everyone's talking about it. And someone recognized enough details that, well, they know it's your family. The room spun. What? I whispered. I didn't name anyone. You didn't have to. People gossip. They fill in blanks. It's everywhere now. My throat closed. Does she know? Yes, my aunt said. Your sister knows. I braced for anger. Braced for fear. Braced for regret. What I felt instead? A jolt of vicious satisfaction. Good. My aunt sighed, the long, exhausted kind. Lindsay, there will be consequences. She was right. The consequences came fast. My sister lost her job first. Apparently her coworkers recognized the story immediately. One overheard a conversation. Another connected dates. Someone mentioned it at lunch. Her boss called her in and said something about professional reputation and family-friendly environment and not a good fit. She was gone within a week. Then came social fallout. Parents at her kids' school whispered. People stared at her in grocery stores. Couples canceled plans. Her husband's family didn't want drama. Her marriage started cracking down the middle. My aunt updated me through hushed calls. They're talking about moving, she said. Your sister can't go anywhere without people whispering. A normal person would have felt guilty. I'm not proud of this, but I didn't. Not yet. I wanted her to feel what I felt: public humiliation, loss, grief, shame. I wanted her to understand the pain she had thrown on me carelessly, like confetti at her stolen wedding. But consequences are tricky things. They don't stop at the person you aim them toward. They spill. They spread. They infect everyone around. One night, Owen found me on the couch scrolling through comment threads discussing the viral story about my sister. "How long have you been reading that?" he asked quietly. "A while," I muttered. "Lindsay, this isn't healthy." "She deserves it," I snapped. He sat beside me and gently took my phone. "Maybe she does. But do you really want to sit here watching her crumble? Every day? Every hour?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to say I was above it. But the truth was uglier. "I just need to know," I whispered. "I need to see it." "Why? To heal? Or to hurt?" I didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. And the truth got even darker when the first lawsuit arrived. Yes. My sister tried to sue me. Defamation. She claimed my anonymous post destroyed her life. Her lawyer sent a letter to my house, a house she should not have known the address of. Creepy didn't even begin to describe it. Owen and I hired an attorney. He reviewed my post, snorted, and said, "She has no case." And she didn't. No names. No city. No identifiable details. And everything I wrote was technically true. The case was dismissed. When I heard the news, I felt a rush of triumph so sharp it felt like champagne bubbling through my veins. But that same week something else happened. Something that should have overwhelmed everything else. I got pregnant. 2 years of crying in bathrooms. 2 years of injections. 2 years of negative tests. And then, 2 lines. I should have been overwhelmed with joy. And I was. But that joy had to fight for space with something else. Obsession. Because even as I carried the miracle I'd fought so hard for, I couldn't stop watching my sister burn. I checked updates daily. Then twice daily. Then every spare moment. It was like I needed her pain to validate my own healing. And then, Owen caught me again. This time, he didn't sit calmly. He closed my laptop, placed it aside, and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Not anger. Not judgment. Fear. "Lindsay," he said softly, "you're pregnant with our child. And you are spending every waking moment watching her fall apart. I just need to know she's suffering," I whispered. "And then what?" he asked. "Will that make you a better mother? Will that erase what she did? Will that fix anything?" I didn't answer. Because the truth was terrifying. She was still controlling my life. Even in her downfall. Even in her humiliation. My obsession was just a new leash I'd let her put around my neck. But it wasn't until I saw what happened to her children that everything shattered. And that's when my revenge turned into something else entirely. Something I never expected. Something I will regret for the rest of my life. The moment everything changed started in the cereal aisle at a grocery store. I had my 3-year-old son in the cart, babbling about dinosaurs and marshmallows, when I turned the corner and froze. My nephew. 7 years old now. Thin. Pale. Wearing a shirt 2 sizes too big. And beside him, my mother. Not the polished version I remembered. Older. Smaller. Exhausted. Standing over a shopping cart filled with generic brand everything. My mother was counting coins. Literal coins. At the register. There were no cupcakes, no snacks for school, no treats. Just the bare minimum to survive. My nephew tugged her sleeve. "Grandma, can I get this?" "A chocolate bar." She shook her head. "We can't today, sweetheart." His face fell in a way that hit me so hard my throat tightened. They didn't see me. I stayed hidden behind a display of oatmeal packets, heart pounding. I shouldn't have stared. But I did. I watched them struggle to bag their groceries. Watched my mother apologize to the cashier for being short 20 cents. Watched my nephew pretend not to notice. And something ugly inside me twisted. I went home and called my aunt. "How bad is it?" I asked. She sighed. Bad. Your sister's husband left. 6 months ago. What? He moved out. He has the kids on weekends. Pays tiny support. Your sister lost her job. No office will hire her after the story leaked. She's living with your parents. All of them trying to survive on retirement money. My stomach dropped. What is she doing for income? Long pause. You don't want to know. Tell me. Another long breath. She's selling pictures. Certain kinds of pictures. Online. I nearly vomited. My sister, the girl who stole my fiancé and my wedding, was now taking explicit photos of herself out of desperation. She's not doing well. My aunt whispered. Emotionally. Mentally. Financially. This story ruined her. This story. My story. The one I posted. I felt a flicker, just a flicker, of something like regret. But before I could even process that, things got worse. Something leaked, my aunt said one night. I felt my blood run cold. What leaked? Her photos. I gripped the phone. No. Yes. Someone recognized her face. Shared them. They're everywhere. Her kids' school. Facebook groups. Parents' chats. I sat on the floor, numb. But nothing prepared me for what I saw next. A few days later, I ran into them again outside the same grocery store. My nephew was crying. Not kid crying. Not tantrum crying. Sobbing from his gut, face red and blotchy, shoulders shaking. A group of kids stood nearby pointing at him. That's him. One boy snickered. His mom's the naked lady. My mother was desperately trying to shield him, pulling him close. People stared. Whispered. Looked away. I stood at my car watching this unfold. Frozen. My son in his car seat called. Mommy? But I didn't move. I watched my nephew crumble. A 7-year-old child. A child who had done absolutely nothing wrong. A child who was collateral damage in a war he wasn't even alive for when it began. And suddenly my stomach twisted into a fist. My revenge didn't just hit my sister. It hit him. I drove home in silence, parked the car, and walked straight to Owen. I told him everything. He listened. Then he said the words I'd been avoiding for years. Lindsay, this isn't justice anymore. This is cruelty. And it's destroying you. I wanted to deny it, but all I saw in my mind was that little boy crying while strangers gawked. He didn't deserve that. I whispered. No, Owen said softly. He didn't. But your sister did. And what about my mother? I asked. He hesitated. And that hesitation was the answer. I was lying to myself if I thought only my sister was suffering. My revenge had a blast radius. It hit her. Her kids. My father. My mother. My own mental health. I'd turned into someone who refreshed gossip forums like they were weather apps. Someone who needed updates on another person's misery to stay afloat. Someone who'd started to enjoy it. And then, like the universe had impeccable comedic timing. My son asked me, Mommy, what's an ant? I lied. Without thinking. No, I said. You don't have one. It slid out of me like a reflex. And afterwards, I went into the bathroom and threw up. I was rotting from the inside out. Consumed by a feud that had warped me into someone I didn't recognize. A few nights later, my phone rang at 10 p.m. I almost didn't answer. My father's voice came through, cracked and small. Lindsay, he said. It's your mother. My heart dropped. She's been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. They're giving her less than a year. She wants to see you. I sat on the bathroom floor, phone in hand, pulse thundering in my ears. After everything. After all the pain. After the betrayal. After the revenge. After the destruction. Now this. Owen found me still sitting there in shock. What do I do? I whispered. He knelt beside me. I don't know, he said honestly. But whatever choice you make, you'll never get another chance to change it. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel rage. I felt something worse. Fear. Because suddenly, after everything we'd done to each other, I wasn't sure of who I had become anymore. The hospital smelled like bleach and goodbye. I was supposed to meet my father in the lobby at 2 p.m. I arrived early because my nerves wouldn't let me stay home. I sat in the waiting room rehearsing what I'd say to my dying mother, some combination of politeness, distance, and self-preservation, when I heard a small voice behind me. "Grandpa, I'm scared." I turned. My nephew. My sister. My father. All right there. My sister looked at me like I was a ghost. Thin. Pale. Hair pulled back like she'd given up on pretending she had it together. Behind her, my nephew stared at me with big eyes, trying to piece together who I was. My father froze, panicking. My nephew tugged his sleeve. "Grandpa, who is that lady?" My father's face crumpled. And then, because children have a way of detonating truths. "You're my aunt," he said suddenly. "Aren't you? You look like Mom." My sister's hand flew to her mouth. I swallowed. "Yes," I said softly. "I'm your aunt." And that was it. The dam broke in her eyes, and she slipped out into the hallway, covering her face. For a moment I didn't know what to do. Then I realized it didn't matter what I felt. A child was sitting there confused and scared. So I sat next to him. "Your grandma is very sick," I said. "She's scared. Everyone is." "Are you scared too?" he whispered. "Yes," I said truthfully. "Very." He nodded like he understood something deep and ancient. "She's asking for both of you," my father murmured when my sister returned with red eyes. She motioned for me to go first. "No," I said. "We'll go together." We walked side by side into our mother's room. My mother looked tiny in that hospital bed, frail, translucent, like her bones were trying to escape her skin. She reached for our hands. We both hesitated. But then something wordless passed between me and my sister. We'd been enemies for so long that the truce felt awkward and unfamiliar, but real. We each took one of my mother's hands. She didn't say anything profound. No apologies. No confessions. No grand last words. She just whispered, "My girls," and cried. And that was somehow worse. I visited 3 more times before she died. We talked about trivial things, weather, childhood memories, my son, her garden. We never talked about the betrayal. We never talked about what she let happen to me. We never talked about what I'd done in return. Some conversations are too big for deathbeds. The funeral was small and emotional. My sister sat on one side of the church with her kids. I sat on the other with Owen and my son. We didn't speak. But we didn't avoid each other either. After the burial, everyone drifted away until only the two of us stood near the fresh dirt. She spoke first, voice shaking. "I destroyed everything," she said. "I know I did. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say it." I stared at the headstone. "I became you," I said. "I wanted revenge and I got it. I wrote that post. I knew it could hurt you. And when your photos leaked, I didn't warn you. I let it happen." She didn't look surprised. "You should hate me," she whispered. "I do," I said. "But not like I used to." She cried harder. "My son," she whispered. "He knows everything now. Kids told him. He didn't deserve that." "No," I said. "He didn't." We stood there, 2 women who had ruined each other's lives, crying over a grave of the person who told us to get over it, instead of helping us heal. Then I reached into my purse and handed her something. A letter I'd written months earlier. A letter I never intended to give her. "This isn't forgiveness," I said. "It's just honesty." She nodded and clutched it like it was fragile. "Thank you," she whispered. I walked away. I didn't look back. 3 years passed. We didn't become friends. We didn't become enemies again either. We became something in between, two people trying to stop the cycle from swallowing our children whole. Every month, I send my father money. He uses it for school supplies, clothes, activities. My sister doesn't know it's from me. She doesn't need to. She got a job at a warehouse. Nothing glamorous, but stable. Her kids are healthier now. Happier. Healing. I'm in therapy, still, working on letting go of the parts of myself I grew to survive. The sharpness. The bitterness. The obsession. My sister is in therapy too. We see our father separately, Tuesdays for her, Thursdays for me. It works. But on his 70th birthday, for the first time in years, we ended up in the same room. The kids played together like cousins who'd never known war. My son and her children built block towers and knocked them down, laughing so loud the walls shook. At one point, my nephew, the oldest, walked up to me shyly and said, "Hi, Aunt Lindsay." I nearly broke. Later, I found myself standing on the lawn watching all the kids chase each other in circles. My sister stepped outside and stood about 10 feet away, staring at them too. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" I asked. "The money. Dad told me. I'm not mad. I'm grateful." I didn't respond. "They don't know," she said. "About us. About what happened. I didn't tell them. I didn't tell my son either. We both watched our kids playing like they belonged to a world much kinder than the one we came from. We'll never be sisters again," I said, not unkindly. "I know," she whispered. "But maybe we don't have to be enemies." She moved a little closer, not much, just enough that it didn't feel like a battlefield anymore. "Maybe this is enough," she said. "Being not strangers." I looked at our children, laughing, running, whole. Maybe this was enough. Maybe it had to be. Because in the end, this wasn't a story about forgiveness or revenge or even family. It was about breaking a cycle. So our children wouldn't repeat it. And in that messy, fragile middle ground between hatred and reconciliation, we finally found something that almost felt like peace.